When a company sends review samples out to the reviewers, then they usually send a reviewer's guide, which is almost like a complete review, but done by the manufacturer themselves. Now, this is useful to the reviewer in a variety of ways. It can give them an idea of what the company is expecting the results to be, so the reviewer can compare against that. And if you're seeing wildly different results, you might want to look in to see if you have some kind of issues with your hardware, that kind of a thing. Also, again, this is useful for the company because they can show their product in the light that they want to, right? The games that you select, the hardware that you use to test, things like that, can influence the results. So while we're about to look at a ton of amazing information about the 7950X3D, which is going to show it as about 6% faster on average than the i9-13900K, and about 16% faster on average than the Ryzen 9 7950X, in gaming, keep in mind that the information you're seeing is a leaked reviewer's guide published by AMD. So these numbers are coming from AMD themselves, not from an independent third-party reviewer, which might select different games, different scenes in those games, which may not put these numbers quite this high when you see full reviews. That being said, it is a wide number of games and is probably not, completely inaccurate or anything like that. Now, where are we getting this? This is from HD Technologia, who has apparently gotten that review, the review guide, right? That's where all this information is, and have published it early. Now that, to be clear, is completely violating review embargoes. We're expecting these CPUs to come out on the 28th, which would mean reviews are likely not going to come out before the 27th. I don't have the official review embargo deadline. I don't review CPUs myself, which is why I can show you all of this now that it's out in the wild. Anyway, so and again, we do have to trust that this is the official information, and HD Technologia got accurate results, but this does very much look like actual reviewer's guide from AMD. Now, I think it's also very important, again, this being from AMD, to talk about the test system, things like that, anything that might be a little bit weird. Also, if you're out of the loop and you're like, wait, what is this 7950X3D thing? So the X3D chips are the update to AMD's 7000 series CPUs, not GPUs. This increased cache should increase gaming performance in many games, because that's what it is, it's just increased cache. However, a cost of the increased cache is lower clock speeds. Although the 7950 that we're looking at here is interesting in that it has two CCDs, and one of those CCDs will have higher clocks but not have the stacked cache. The other one will get the stacked cache with lower clocks. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And it's going to be further on when we get the 7800X3D, which will be the 1 CCD 8-core 16-thread chip that just has the stacked cache. And I'll be very interested to see if that actually outperforms these in gaming performance. Or not, or if games are able to use the higher clocks when it makes sense on these CCDs. But I would actually, I'm gonna guess that the 7800X3D is actually gonna be the top end performer, and they're releasing it later to not cannibalize sales, and they want to sell these more expensive ones first, would be my guess. But anyway, let's take a look here. So they're testing it with two 16GB DDR5 sticks. And here's the biggest thing I want to point out. This is DDR5 6000. Now, for AMD CPUs, great. That's just about the sweet spot. You can maybe go a little bit higher. Tightening the timings has a bigger effect, really, than higher frequencies. However, I'm going to mention that Intel's 13th gen, like 13900K, can support much higher memory speeds and increase its gaming performance from there. So while this is going to be an apples-to-apples comparison, it's interesting to note that the 13th gen could be pushed faster on faster memory that the Ryzen 7000 series CPUs don't support, and that could change overall which one is faster here or change by how much, that kind of a thing. You can see the rest of this looks pretty solid. Now, interestingly, they're also testing results both with the 7900 XTX and an RTX 4090. So we can actually see both of those things. They're giving us the driver versions they used on those GPUs. Looks like they were on an ROG Strix Z790E gaming Wi-Fi board for the 13900K and an AMD reference AM5 board for the AMD version for the AMD testing. Windows 11, 1080p, resizable bar is enabled, and Windows 11 VBS enabled. All right, so let's get into the graphs. So here, let me shrink myself tiny and out of the way. You can see games like Horizon Zero Dawn are an overall standout. This is versus the 13900K. Oh, the other thing I should mention is it's the 13900K, not the 13900KS. Now, there's not a massive difference there, but I will pull up the fact that Intel has released a faster CPU, the 13900KS. Compared to the 13900K, it's only a couple percent faster. Now, if you throw in some faster DDR5 memory, like I'm seeing here from TechSpot, you get a couple percent more. But overall TechSpot results, we're seeing the 13900KS just a couple percent faster. Tom's Hardware may be getting different results with different games, that kind of a thing, but still only seeing the 13900KS a few percent faster than the 13900K. But I'm just saying, keep in mind that there is a slightly faster Intel CPU that they could have compared against, but didn't in this in the reviews we're looking at here. Anyway, we're seeing Horizon Zero Dawn at 27% lead, F1 2021 at 21% lead. We see a lot of leads here. They are showing a few that are basically tied. There's a lot here that I would consider anything less than a 5% win is basically a tie. And then some things like CSGO, Ashes of the Singularity, where they're losing a bit. Ashes of the Singularity, which is quite old at this point, seems to be the biggest loss. But anyway, yeah, there you go. There's that. Now, that's not all that we have. So here you can see it stacked up more as a percentage difference in a chart rather than on the graph. And this is the one that's giving us the overall percentage difference. So you can see all of these here. We're seeing the 7950X3D with an overall plus 5.6% average off of those results. Now, again, 5.6%, there's nothing mind-blowing here, but that is a lot better than the 7950X non-3D version did, which is what we're... Oh, and by the way, this testing was done with the 7900 XTX. So that's important to note here. This was with the 7900 XTX. And then jumping over to this next slide, we're now seeing it tested on the RTX 4090. So on the RTX 4090, we also now see performance against the 7950X. So here, to be clear, we see the 7950X 3D performance, the 13900K's performance, and then we're seeing the percentage difference, and then the 7950X performance, and then the percentage difference. Now, I think this one's definitely the most interesting chart out of all of these to take a look at. So here, we're seeing on the RTX 4090 a 6% lead for the 7950X 3D versus the 13900K. And then when they're showing it versus the 7950X, which notice it looks like they tested fewer games here. Now, I'm not quite sure why they tested fewer games here, but that's an interesting thing to note. But they did. But in the games that they did test, we're seeing a 16% lead for the X3D versus the 7950X. So, within the same generation, by moving to the X3D model, it looks like a 16% gaming win. Again, it matters which games you test, so other reviewers may see different results here. But yeah, I think that's kind of the big one there. Now, it's not only gaming benchmarks that were leaked, there were also some more just standard productivity or synthetic benchmarks leaked as well. Here we're not seeing the percentage differences, but you can see that in 7-zip compression, the 7950X 3D is significantly higher than the 13900K. However, you can see that in Dolphin Bench, the time is higher on the 7950X 3D. Now, while I don't do Dolphin Bench, I'm guessing having a time score be higher is probably bad. That's something where you would want a lower number. And in Cinebench R23, in the single thread performance, we're seeing the 13900 ahead with 2260 versus 2040. But in the multi-threading, it pulls much, much closer with 35,924 versus 36,056. So basically a tie, but a small loss there in the multi-threading. Geekbench scores are also a little bit lower on the single thread and the multi-thread on the Geekbench 5. And Kraken benchmark compiling Chromium, time to compile is a little bit higher for the 7950X3D. And again, if it's time to completion, a lower score there should be better. Okay, so those are the overall results. Like I said, I think this is interesting. I'm really personally most interested in how the 7800X3D ends up performing once we get it. Also, I'm interested to see how a 13900K or KS would perform on faster memory versus this. Because while I understand this is great and you should test them on the same memory for apples to apples comparison, it's also only fair to acknowledge that one advantage of the 13900K is that you can have faster memory. For example, as we move to our next news sources, Galax is introducing some new DDR5 8000 memory that the Intel 700 series motherboards can support, which again isn't going to work on the AMD system here. So again, just something to keep in mind there, again, with those KSs and faster memories being available. Now, in other news, we're also seeing that the motherboard manufacturers are updating their BIOS to support this new X3D chip. We're seeing from Tech Power up here reporting a press release from Gigabyte saying that theirs is now out and about. And earlier, I've actually already reported on MSI rolling out their support, and I think ASRock had theirs out as well. So we're seeing a variety, but I think not all of them yet with their X3D support out now. Now, in other news, let's move on to some GPU news. So if you just were here for the CPU information, this is my normal news video. That was definitely our main story. But we're seeing some articles here. Now, I don't know if this is something I'm going to trust and put a whole lot of credence to, but I thought I'd at least mention it. So many people are waiting on the mid-range and cheaper GPUs from both AMD and Nvidia. We've heard a lot about Nvidia's expected, but this is still not official, release date for the 4070 being in April with possibly an end of March, maybe at GDC, something like that announcement. But we've been not hearing a whole heck of a lot from AMD, or about AMD, and none of it's official from Nvidia or AMD, about when we're seeing their lower-end chips. When are we getting a 7800, 7700, or 7600 RDNA 3 GPUs? Well, from WCCF Tech, but their source here appears to be, My Drivers, which is a Chinese language publication here. So according to them, AMD plans to be launching the Radeon 7800, 7700, and 7600 RDNA 3 GPUs next, and they're saying that they should be very competitive and cost-effective against the RTX 40 lineup. And as far as a time frame, it's middle of 2023, and a widely expected date for at least some of these to maybe come out would be the 618 holiday, which, as you might guess from the name, 618 referring to the date, June 18th, is a shopping holiday founded in 2004 by Liu Huangdong. I'm probably mispronouncing it. Anyway, the point is that might be when we'll see these, but there's not a whole lot of concrete info here, so I'm going to go ahead and just move along to the next story, which is AMD GPU related, which is, well, we just got a 23.2.1 driver update, which I and many other people's had corrupt their Windows install, which I mentioned in my last video, and I had to reinstall Windows. They have now quickly updated to a 23.2.2. Which I have not installed yet, but I plan to, and hopefully this one, in other words, they didn't note it as a fixed issue, but I'm hoping whatever was going wrong with that other update for some people, again, to be clear, not everyone was having that problem. I did, and I did find a lot of reports of others. I'm hoping that this one has solved that problem. They've listed some fixed issues, although corrupted Windows installs is not one of the issues that they are mentioning is fixed. Although this does come with the day one support for Atomic Heart and Company of Heroes 3. You've got your good support for those. Also in GPU news, we're seeing reports from videocards.com here that Radeon 7900 and RTX 40 GPUs are slowly getting a little bit cheaper in Europe. And they've got a chart here to back it up, where you can see that overall, February versus January, they're seeing AMD's GPU pricing, which you can see model by model here, going down 5.6%. And price versus MSRP down at minus 8.1% now. And then you can see the Nvidia scores here at 3% down February versus January, but February versus MSRP is still up slightly on average versus MSRP, so slightly less price reduction there on the Nvidia side of things. Thought I'd throw this in here because my pricing videos are usually focused on the United States market, whereas I understand many of my viewers are in Europe or some such, so not drastic moves here or anything, but it looks like it is on the right track. Now, on that note, it looks like Nvidia's stock is heading up by 8% as gaming revenue is picking up during the most recently reported quarter. And you can look at some quarterly results here of revenue trend, revenues by markets. And you can see the gaming segment ticked up in quarter 4 of 2020. In quarter 4 versus quarter 3. Anyway, so interesting stuff. We're still way, way down from where we were during the previous year, though. But we're finally having a quarter-on-quarter uptick, I guess, which Nvidia would be happy about, and stock prices going up and all of that. Now, again, with the quarter 4, that would be, I think, when you got the new 4000 series. So you would hope that they sold a bit more than when they didn't have a new GPU launch. Anyway, I wanted to mention that it looks like the AORUS PCIe Gen5 SSDs from Gigabyte are now sort of available. They're available to back order, apparently, from Amazon and Newegg. So if you're in the market for a new PCIe Gen5 SSD, they're starting to increase availability. I did not mean to click on that separately. And then in a bit of game update news, game performance news, Marvel Spider-Man Remastered got a new update, which is apparently, I haven't had a chance to test it myself, but should improve performance on CPUs with high physical core counts. I know there's been a lot of interest in my channel on CPU performance, CPU optimization, games being able to use more of the physical cores, things like that. Well, apparently this update should be helping with that, although, like I said, I have not had a chance to actually test that out for myself yet, and it has a few other updates going on here. And again, speaking of CPU performance updates, Wild Hearts launched with some terrible performance on a lot of systems, and they now have a patch for the PC version, which is apparently uncapping certain high-end CPUs to improve the performance. And this should now mean that you don't need to change the audio settings for a weird workaround. I had reported in my last video that switching the audio settings to use the 5.1 or 7.1 audio to bizarrely actually fix your performance on your CPU is no longer necessary after this patch, it looks like. In other gaming news, Half-Life has got the ray traced mod now available. Now, this is not RTX Remix. We have a modder, Sultim T, who I believe has done other ray tracing updates for classic games, has now released the Half-Life version. Yeah, this is the same modder that already did Doom, Quake, and Serious Sam, the first encounter. So might be something to play around with if you're interested. And I thought I'd just end with the fact that if you're looking for Steam sales, we have the schedule for all of 2023's sales released now by Valve, so you can see the dates for those if you are interested. And there will also be a few fests, Mystery Fest, Puzzle Fest, Sports Fest, all of those types of things. If you are interested in looking for some sales, we got the next fest coming out here. Anyway, I've got to get to work. I was hoping for another snow day, but I don't think it's happening. And I hope all of you have an excellent day.